a mission in the game. That's not a trailer. It's actual a segment of the game.
Yeah, so yeah, we saw a lot of crazy Spider-Man high-flying acrobatics. This was really the first time we saw an extended look at actual gameplay from Spider-Man since the big reveal last year.
Yep. I think we showed about like 90 seconds last year and about 8 minutes and 30 seconds, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. And one of the things I think is so interesting about what we're seeing here, and we're seeing it right now, I mean, this is a Peter Parker we don't see too often. This is a more experienced Peter Parker, kind of, you know, really powerful at the height of his powers. We're going to see some of that here in a second. But tell me a little bit about how you guys approach that, you know?
So I think one thing is we wanted to, we wanted to create, first of all, we wanted to create our own Spider-Man universe. We didn't want to tie it to a particular movie or a particular comic series. You know, John and I talked a lot about, and the rest of Insomniac talked about, like, let's do our own thing. And Marvel totally embraced that. And it started with, let's make him a little bit older. Let's put him, 23 years old, just graduated college, and really at the height of his, mastery of his powers. So, when it comes to his combat or traversal or even his gadgets, because he's a smart kid at the same time, or smart young man at the time, right? And that all hopefully is represented throughout this demo.
Yeah, it really shows in the video that we saw and in the stuff that we're seeing on screen here. So many cool, like, acrobatic takedowns he's doing, zipping around, like stringing guys up with his webs. Looks like you guys got that swinging mechanic, which is so hard to get right.
Critical, though.
It's hard.
Looks like you put a lot into that.
I think John and I talk a lot about, and obviously Rest of Insomniac, which I'm just going to say Insomniac because it's everybody, this is a fantasy fulfillment, right? We want to feel like Spider-Man, whether we're swinging through the city, fighting, or even the story that we're telling. We want to put you in the role of that character, so we just want to have that be expressed as best as humanly possible.
Yeah, this looks incredible. I was telling you guys earlier that I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and I feel like this game really kind of takes all of the different elements of Spider-Man, of Peter Parker, the storytelling, his relationships, his snarkiness, and the one-liners and all that stuff.
Well, I'll let the lead writer talk about that.
Yeah, I feel like it really takes all that. And
it's one of the challenges with working on a Spider-Man game is that he's got all these quips that he can do, and that's something that I think a lot of people expect. However, in a video game where you do a lot of things, over and over again, you don't want to have the same quips, so that's a big challenge for our writing team, is making sure that you get the feeling of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, but you don't get the repetition.
Yeah, I think it's, for us, is have him look at the situation he's in, that particular situation, and comment on that situation. Like, there's a reason why he says something about a Higgs field when he's fighting that big guy in the bridge.
Yeah.
Use the situation of what's happening to drive the humor rather than just, I'm just going to say one line for the sake of saying one line, because...
Well, I love how he doesn't, like, get intimidated by it. He says, huh, that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, remember, he's a smart guy. He sees that. It's impressive to him.
And it's about science, too.
And it's about science.
Part of his character. He sees this guy and he's like, oh, it's a Higgs boson. Wow.
I think the other thing for us is, like, outside of the humor, it's the relatability of the character. And there's that part, like, one of my favorite lines is the very end of the helicopter sequence. He's looking down the helicopter, go to first person, he goes, please don't screw this up.
Yeah.
So, like, even though,
that's
like...
because he's always thinking that.
Because I'm always thinking about the game, I'm like, oh, please, let's not screw this up. Please don't screw it up. Like, there's actually probably a line in every trailer that's about us as a team making sure we don't screw it up. Yeah, because I think it was like last time it was no pressure, right? I'm like, there's no pressure. And now it's like, don't screw this up. There's a level of that relatability that we want to come across, which I think what makes people like you love Spider-Man so much is that you can relate to him in some way, and we want to make sure that comes across in...
I've never met anyone else who can shoot webs out of his wrists.
Well, he's a really smart guy. He just creates web shooters. So hopefully, you can just make your own web shooter.
So, speaking of no pressure, this is an original story that you guys are putting together. This isn't based on a certain comic book arc. This isn't based on a movie. You guys are giving us your own take on Spider-Man. And John, you're the lead writer. No pressure, right?
Yeah, so there is a lot of pressure because it's a character that we all know and love, right? And you have to be able to give people what they want, in being able to be Spider-Man. But you also want to have something new and fresh so that, you're not just experiencing the same movie or the same comic, storyline that you had before.
Yeah, two things really drive us, I think, on that element is, one, like you said, everybody knows Spider-Man. So we want to respect the tradition of the franchise. We want to stick to that DNA, but at the same time, we also want to surprise people.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, you get a hint of it in the demo, but as we get more into the story is this idea that the best stories when it comes to this character are when Peter's world and Spider-Man worlds collide.
Yeah, yeah.
And you saw some of that a little bit in the trailer where when he shows up at the top of that bridge, that tower, he says Martin Lee. He doesn't say Mr. Negative, because for him, he's like, Martin Lee, I know that guy. He runs the feast shelter. My Aunt May, works at the feast shelter. So you're seeing that collision of his two worlds. And we feel like that's something that's driving us across the entire experience, and we'll make a great story at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's really the bedrock of the whole story,
Yeah.
is Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Make sure that we represent both.
I got to just remark on this incredible footage here. And I mean, just to clarify, this is an open world game.
Yes.
I mean, worth just confirming that for the record.
Yes, it is an open world. That is Peter Parker in the suit. So I just want to clarify based on a thing that happens at the end of the demo. That is Peter Parker. He actually says Pete in one line, because I've memorized every line of dialogue, and when it plays, I can tell you what he's saying at this point. Yes, it is. You will have freedom to explore the city. It's big. For us, New York City is a character within itself, right? And we want to deliver on that fantasy, just like when it comes to traversal, comes to combat, comes to this human story. New York City is such identified with its character, and our artists, our designers, our world builders, everybody in Insomniac is making sure we deliver on that fantasy.
It's so cool. The artists have this map, this like really detailed map of every neighborhood in Manhattan, and they all have its own name, and it's really cool how the team is working.
I was playing the game, like, just a little inside baseball. Like, I was playing the game before the show, because we had we're working on things.
Sure.
And this one thing I was playing, it makes you go around the city, and I was like, man, this city's big. Our character moves pretty fast, and he can, and for us, like, the way that we've designed the traversal, like, no obstacle is too big for him. Like, you can just constantly parkour your way through if you snap the line or something. And it just feels like a big place I want to explore, and we're definitely going to deliver on that.
A big city that looks really fun to explore, because you're Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it looks like you guys really nailed the swinging mechanics and the wall running and all that stuff.
Yeah, we definitely want to, level accessibility with, like, hey, I want to feel like Spider-Man right away, but then there's that extra level of stuff that we're doing behind closed doors that, like, you can vary up how you get to that helicopter.
Oh, nice.
You saw certain people perch, you can just run up walls. That turn that he does around the corner, that's actually the player saying, I'm going to run alongside this wall, and then I want to do a sharp turn. Just press right on the D-pad, and boom, he does that swing around.
Nice.
If he hadn't done that, he would just kept going down the other street.
I need to figure out where you guys are doing this, and I need to get in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a level of, like, we want you to jump in and feel like Spider-Man, but then we want to have those levels of, like, when I see, like, someone like Scott, one of our project managers, play the game, I'm like, I want to play like that.
Okay, last question from me. We saw Martin Lee, Mr. Negative, last night. Is he the antagonist of the game? This is the first time we've really seen a villain, or like, what's the deal?
I'm glad you brought up Martin Lee, aka Mr. Negative, because one of the things we talked about unique Spider-Man universe, right? And part of that journey for us was say, we want to have some classic characters that people really know really well, like a Wilson Fisk, Kingpin, who we saw in that. And our game actually starts with taking down Kingpin and this new group, but also having characters you may not know about. They're newcomers, like Martin Lee, Captain Yuri Watanabe, who's talking to you on the phone. We want to have a good mix of them. So Martin Lee has a very big part in the game, but we have a very big cast. We've kind of just scratched the surface of the story. It's a big story. Like, I was presenting to somebody a couple weeks ago, and I just sat back and go, that's a pretty big story. There's a lot of things going on. So it's just, we're giving you hints. We're going to definitely talk more about that and really kind of show you all elements of our journey between.
But one of the things I love about Martin Lee is that, we talked about this collision of Peter Parker's life and Spider-Man's life. Martin Lee, as a character, he has a positive and a negative side, right? It's Martin Lee, it's Mr. Negative. And thematically, that's really fun to play with in the story.
That's a classic superhero trope, too, I mean, there's a lot of other characters, but I think Spider-Man kind of uniquely tackles that.
Yeah, I think what we noticed is his best villains throughout his years are the ones he has some type of connection with.
Dr. Octopus.
And I don't want to say any name because then it's people, oh, he's in the game, or she's in the game.
But we know the names. We know the names.
Yeah. But I think it's when he has that connection to that character as Peter, it just means a lot more. It makes for a better journey as you're playing this game.
Yeah, that's right. So you guys are coming out in 2018.
Yep.
What are you going to be doing between now and then? Like, what's next on the agenda as you?
What are we not going to be doing? I mean, from up and down, from the building the world to our missions to our story. getting feedback from this conference and injecting into the game.
You can send me a build. I'll give you as much feedback as you need.
It's everything. I mean, you guys are interviewing a lot of talented developers. They probably all say these are not easy things to create.
Yep.
And for us, we know how important this character is.
Yeah.
It's important to me. I mean, I grew up with this character. Like, I've been telling people, like, my mom used to give me my Spider-Man action figure because it was the only thing